Our next guest, let me introduce him as he's already gotten plenty of TV time. Now let's put a name to his face. He is the answer to this question. What do you get when you mix Kentucky drawl with French? You get the chair of BYU's French and Italian department, former offensive lineman at Murray State, a pedigree that's tailor-made for the wise guys, and we welcome our friend Bob Hudson into the show. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
And I know you don't live too far away from our lair.
Yeah, don't tell people. For security reasons, we tell them it's an undisclosed location.
Get down the street. So we got all kinds of football questions to ask. Well, let's start with this one. How do you take Kentucky drawl and fluent French and just make that work? What's the magic sauce?
That's a really good question. I actually have students that ask me the first day of class, if they learn French from me, are they going to speak French the way I speak English? And I try not to be offended by that question, but I let them know that I learned my English in the South of the United States and I learned my French in Paris. So it's, the blend, I don't know how good of a blend it is, but it's part of my personality and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Do you, in France, like here in the United States, we have, you go down to the deep South, and sometimes people start talking, and you think, I can't understand that. I don't even know what they're saying. It seems like a different language, but it's just the way the dialect is just a little bit different. Is that evident in France as well, or countries in Europe or Italy? If you go to different parts of those countries, do the people have different accents?
Absolutely, yeah. Southwestern France has the Gascon accent that's pretty strong. Marseille, that's closer to Italy, has sort of a sing-song version of French. But the most marked one probably is in Quebec. So up in Canada, a lot of French people cannot understand the French Canadians the first time they talk to them.
Really?
In fact, it takes me a couple days to train my ear. I love it. I think it's a beautiful variety of French, but that's not the general opinion. I love the French Canadian, Quebecois French. But yeah, it's very, very different. To answer your question, Blaine.
We thought we'd mix French and football for a few minutes.
Alrighty.
So we're going to give you a football term, and then you give it to us back in French.
Okay, so this is, let me just let you know that because it's an import sport, a lot of them you're going to be let down because they're going to be just borrowed terms. But the French Canadians they don't like to borrow terms. They do have their own, so it's different.
Right. Well, let's see.
The French Canadians have football. They have CFL, right?
They do.
Yeah.
In fact,
so Montreal Alouettes are there.
Ben Cahoon was basically the Jerry Rice of the CFL.
Yeah. Are they still the Alouettes? I think
they are the Alouettes. Absolutely, yeah.
So it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Montreal Alouettes, and
Toronto
Argonauts. I worked out for the Argos.
Oh, did you?
My good buddy Scott Colley, Austin's dad, played and was really good for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And Greg Peterson's a Hall of Famer that played on my team that played for the Stampeders in Calgary.
Okay.
We've had some really good players come from BYU that went up to Canada and had quite impressive careers.
Austin himself played for the BC Lions for a while there. I actually went to a game, saw them play the Tiger Cats in the BC place, and Austin was the star of the game.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so let's give you some words, and then we'll just see where this goes.
Okay.
So in America, touchdown's touchdown. What do we got in?
In France, it's touchdown, or in Canada, touche.
Oh, touche.
Touche.
See, I did not
Yeah,
know.
touche.
touche.
I double dog dare you to use touche on one of our broadcasts.
You got to do it.
Touche.
Right. Quarterback.
Is the quarterback ou quart. So quarterback in France, quart, Q-U, like quart, like a quart of milk. Quart is how you say it in Canada.
Quart?
Yeah, quart.
Oh, my gosh.
I didn't know that. All right, a few more football. For holding.
I think it's just rattrapement. Not sure about that one.
All right, well, we're going with you.
So I want you to give the signal.
Let's do the signal.
Yeah.
Rattrapement.
Yeah,
you're grabbing on. Rattraper. Yeah. It's une faute. I know it's a foot. Une faute. That's how you say a penalty.
Yeah.
All right.
So in foot is penalty?
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
All right, face mask.
Not sure. La grille. I bet it's la grille. The grill.
The grill.
Oh, so grabbing
so.
the grill. There you go. Yeah.
All right. How do you say catch in France?
Attraper is the
French.
verb. Attraper, attrapement ou réception. It's,
If I was a dad saying to my son,
those are nowhere
let's
near
go.
football terms.
Because they have to have this phrase in French. If I said to my son, "Hey, let's go play catch," how would I say, "Hey, let's go play catch"?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I'm not really sure. On va aller tirer la balle. Okay, so we're gonna go throw the ball.
Let's go throw the ball.
Tirer le ballon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. How would you say cougar tail in French?
Okay, so this would be a big one for Canada because it's maple syrup, right? It's maple.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
They have one called queue de castor, which is a beaver tail. It's a big thing there. So we would just say, I'd say queue de Cougar. Coup de cougar. Let's call it that.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. Interception. How would that?
Interception.
There you go.
Even still. What? How about wise guys?
Ooh.
You could even call them wise men. You could do whatever.
Les sages.
Les Sages. That's our show over there.
We should
Les Sages.
have, in parentheses after, we should have Les Sages.
Yeah, we had someone on the stream from Paris the other day.
Yeah, we've had some French folks.
Do you think they said Les Sages? How do you say it?
Les Sages.
Les sages.
They say it's Monday.
Les
Les Sages
Sages.
guys are on. How do you say Kalani Sitake's name in French?
Kalani Sitake.
Okay.
Kalani Sitake.
So names are pretty close, right?
I have to say the phrase that my wife says is very endearing.
Okay.
So she says she likes it when I say "Je t'aime beaucoup, mon petit chou."
That's a good one. Yeah.
So how do I? What's the interpretation of that?
Yeah. What does that mean?
I love you very much, my little cabbage.
But why is that endearing?
You know, mon petit pois, my little pea, and mon petit chou are terms of endearment.
So it'd be like in English, I would say, "I love you, my little cream puff," or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I love you very much, my little cabbage.
Yeah.
But it's a very endearing French.
Another one is ma biche, which means my doe, like the female of deer.
So you could say "Je t'aime beaucoup, les dos."
Ma biche.
Or ma biche.
So Eric's on the stream from Singapore and says, "So good to see Bob on the show. Just don't let him get started on the Lakers."
Oh no.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We can pass that up. I'm wearing blue today. It's not forum blue.
So you have a BYU connection that a lot of folks might not know. As a football player, and you played for Murray State, but you took a recruiting visit here.
Yes.
And when you come, the players get paired up with other players to host.
Correct.
And you had Kalani Sitake as your host.
My direct host was John Tait. I'm sure you remember
Big John Tait,
Ben
yeah.
John
He was a
Tait played
monster.
for the Bears and the Chiefs.
Yep.
Biggest man I ever met.
First round draft pick, top paid offensive lineman in the league for a number of years.
I thought I was big at like 6'6", 275 in high school, and he kind of had to tighten in and duck to get in the room. And I was like, this is a big man. But Kalani was the chaperone over all the chaperones. So
He was in charge?
He was in charge.
So how
Even
did that
back
trip
then.
go? What'd you do?
It was awesome. His brother TJ was actually part of the visit, and Justin Enna, who ended up playing.
He'll
with
be on the
Cougars
show next week.
for the Eagles. I'm a Cowboy fan, so I kind of
Okay, all
have
right.
to say that with the
Cowboys and Lakers.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But the trip went great. They took us up into. We went up to a cabin, watched highlights in someone's personal home theater near Sundance.
Yeah.
We went out to Johnny B's that night. I actually sat by Ben Cahoon. He was part of that. He was one of the chaperones for one of the wide receivers. Went to Johnny B's and saw a hypnotist.
Oh, wow.
yeah?
Ben Cahoon got hypnotized.
We'll have to ask him about that.
We went to a laser tag. There used to be a laser tag right there where Smith's in downtown is. There's a laser tag next door. We went and played laser tag there together. Just had a great time. It ended sad for me. I joke with Cameron Chow, my friend, because his dad brought me into his room, and basically
Right.
the first thing Norm Chow did was play my tape. And the very first play, they were going away from me. I didn't really block downfield like it did. And he just said, "Why are you lazy?" It's the first thing Norm Chow ever said to me. When I told Cameron that, he laughed and said, "Yep, that was my dad."
Yeah.
I had Pancakes with Lavell Edwards and Patty Edwards up in before the stadium was called Lavell Edwards Stadium in the president's box there, and that's where he told me that he didn't have a scholarship for me. Wanted me to go to learn the offense at Rick's, and that wasn't what I wanted to do as an 18-year-old. So
you go off to Murray State, which is a very very good program and closer to home, and how was your experience there? So was BYU your first choice, and then you go to Murray State? How was that experience?
BYU was my first choice. It was one of my 5 official NCAA visits. I also went to Kentucky, Louisville, Indiana, and Cincinnati. And BYU was my last one. I thought I was getting a scholarship. So I actually went on my mission before coming back, and my mission president got permission for John L. Smith.
Really?
Remember the church head coach at Louisville at the time, to open my recruiting up for the last 6 months of my mission. So he was sending me weekly letters, and I thought I was going to Louisville until I got home and realized how homesick I'd been. And I had 3 teammates from high school that were playing for Murray State, and I went there and played there and had a great time. My offensive line coach was Matt Luke, who's now the O-line coach, assistant offensive coordinator for Clemson. He's head coach at Ole Miss a few seasons ago. But Joe Panunzio, who's now with the Eagles, with player personnel with the Eagles, was the head coach at the time. So I had a great experience there. I only played for a year until I blew my knee out and couldn't play anymore. But
what was it like to be told no? You know, when in life we just want to be told yes the whole time, and you're here and you're visiting with Lavell Edwards, who's a legend. You've got your plans, he's got his plans. The man upstairs has his plans, which always seem to be the best. But when you hear the word "I don't have that for you," what did you learn?
I could hardly swallow the mouthful of pancakes I had, to be honest with you, at the time. Kind of felt like the world was crashing down around me at the time. And it was a big moment of soul searching for me. I went home and, prayed a lot. And, it was basically, if it's not going to be BYU, where do you want me to go? And it was crystal clear I was supposed to go on a mission. And I tried pleading and saying, okay, how about 1 year at Kentucky, go on a mission? And it was very clear, go on a mission now. And there were things that happened. There were things I saw, things I experienced, people I met that made it crystal clear that I was supposed to be there when I was. And I've got a strong testimony and witness of that.
What did you see in Kalani during your host, during him being the chaperone all those years ago, that you now see today because you got a great relationship with him as a head coach?
Yeah, he's a guy whose personality fills the room. I think there's a reason that Lavell chose him to be the head chaperone of the trip. He's got a personality that just fills the room, and he is someone that makes everyone feel welcome. And it's a gift he had. I served in a bishopric with him for 3 years in a YSA ward, and he just has a personality that fills the room, and you feel his warmth. He's very welcoming, just a great guy all around.
Bob Hudson, the chair of BYU's French and Italian departments on the Wise Guys with us, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. You're a former offensive lineman, so you watch line play really closely. I know you do. So what impressed you most about BYU's offensive line this last season?
The way they kind of came together as a unit despite injuries, that's been the story the last 2 years. I've enjoyed watching Connor Pay, especially, just develop as a talent. And I see big things happening for him as he moves on to the next level in the NFL. It was just fun watching that unit come together. One of the things I really liked was, I don't know how BYU does it, but they always have. You're talking about John Tait again, but they get these guys that are just colossus. You had Kime playing this year and Etienne, who were 6'8" and 6'7", and made me feel small when I went to check out practice. But you get these guys that are just these just massive men that can move. And that's one thing that we recruit well. They're being coached well. And I enjoyed watching them work as a unit and kind of come together and gel at the end. Colorado had a really, really good defensive front, and they got shut down in that game.
Yeah, that was fun.
At practice, when those guys come off, the Giants that you're referring to, and they all have the braces, and it's like they're just being held together because you can't take any risk, right, of a knee or whatever. So they come off like machines. But like you said, there's not a 6-footer now.
No.
No. They're all 6'6", 6'5", 6'7". Sometimes they're even taller. And they that's where you win games.
Yeah.
That's where you win games, where you play.
When you get a guy that's that tall and that strong and that heavy and that athletic, and he can still be mobile and he can still get under someone, right? It's a game of leverage. If you can be mobile and get leverage at that size, you're going to win a football game.
So we get Connor Pay's off now to the NFL. Caleb Etienne, they were trying to get him another year, but he'll be off to the NFL. Yeah. I went to a couple practices the last week of spring ball, and I was very impressed with. They have monsters freshmen and sophomores that are coming back. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're even bigger coming back, but they're not going to have quite the experience. With that being said, what are your expectations for this fall for this football team?
I really think Kalani coaches a next man up system. It's hard. It was really hard coming into a big conference like the Big 12 from where we were before and having the kind of depth that we need to. And I think this season was the first where he really was able to recruit with the NILs to get that depth that he needs. And I think he has this next man up. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be growing pains on the offensive line, but I think they're going to put 5 guys out there that are going to move some people. We're going to get yardage this year. It's going to be a fun season.
LJ is bigger, 20 pounds of muscle. He looks more like Harvey.
Awesome.
But he's got those boys to run behind. And in the Colorado game, Jake didn't have the best game throwing the football, but they ran the ball right down their throat.
Yeah.
And that was just something this is what this team has become. And imagine they'll try to do that again on the 27th when they're over there in Boulder.
I think they will. Yeah.
Everybody thinks quarterback's the most important position, which it is. Like if you don't have that guy, you can't. But then probably next up is the guys up front, because you really can't do much. Even with a good quarterback, you can't do much without good guys up there. So,
well, you look at salaries in the NFL. Left tackle is one of the biggest ones. You got to protect that blind side of that quarterback, especially if you've got a right-hand thrower. Left tackle is a very, very, very important position.
Did you like getting a hold of DBs when they'd come through and just lay them out,
or pull out on a run and be the guard that's pulling or the tackle?
Speaking of pancakes,
it was
pancakes.
Taking on a little dude.
Pancakes was, that's the stat that kind of started. Orlando Pace was a big player when I was a kid that I was watching growing up. The pancake block. And, I loved pulling out. We had this play that when I was in Kentucky, we were a football school and a basketball state. And I was all-state twice in the state of Kentucky at right tackle. And we would run this quick pitch to the right where I got to pull out. And my first responsibility was the cornerback, and I just loved being able to just lay a cornerback flat. And it was double points. It was almost like you could get some pinball action there. If I could lock into that cornerback and throw him into the safety, that was my favorite thing in the world to do.
Here's the interesting thing now, and people that follow closely know the rules changed in the last couple of years. Used to be if you were a 6'6", 300-pound guard, and you're coming out and you're turning the corner, and you have a defensive back in your eyes. The defensive backs were taught to come up and just take you out at the knees. Just take them out in the hole. Just clog it up. They're not allowed to hit the lineman below the waist anymore. So now 185-pound DB, if they're going to take on the lineman, they have to take them on mano a mano. I got to come and meet you. If those were the rules when you were playing, you would have killed some fools out there, right?
I would have had fun. I would have had more fun. I mean, my knee injury was largely due to, a guy at the secondary level. A guy at secondary level. It wasn't a dirty hit, but I wasn't expecting him, and my knee buckled in AstroTurf. But,
I think it's a good rule, by the way.
I agree.
Like, be a man out there, right?
Yeah, you could ask my wife. She'd be very happy if I had 2 functioning knees today.
Man.
Well, you do speak fluent French, so she's got to be happy with that. And let's talk about that for a moment. As the chair of the French department. So your language kicks into gear really on your mission over to Paris. What is it about French that just grabbed you and you've made a life out of it?
There's my grandmother was French, so I always had this cultural attachment to France, but getting called on a mission and being there, and they just have, this joie de vivre ou douceur de vivre, this sweetness or joy of life, where they just enjoy meals. They enjoy their time on this earth. They can be, in the world and of the world. I know that's not, maybe not in line with the way we feel we should be, but there's something about this, world savviness about being over there that you want to enjoy what they've done. Long 2,000-year history of great monuments, great history that you could just check out when you're going through places, and it's just a beautiful country. I
was going to ask you about so I work for an international company when I'm not doing my broadcasting stuff, and we always, when we're meeting with our French partners, or it seems like even our Italian, and you also chair the Italian department,
correct?
And so you know a lot about Italy as well. They always say, guys, you need to chill out a little bit.
Oh yeah,
like don't be in such a panic. Life just seems a little more relaxed in both of those countries. Is that universally true, or am I just from a few experiences making a misrepresentation?
It's not a misrepresentation at all. In fact, there is just sort of this slowness of life that they just enjoy meals. It's not uncommon to have a 2-3 hour meal. Take time out in the day to rest. They're limited to a 35-hour work week, and it's illegal to go past that. You can't even answer. You're not even supposed to answer your emails at night once you're not on the clock. So
Dave and I are on like the 70-hour week plan with all the stuff we're doing.
I feel that way as a chair. Also, there's constantly the inbox is blowing up. I don't even want to think about it right now.
Yeah.
But,
we're going to a bad place. Let's keep talking about the rest. Stuff.
Yeah. But there is this sort of you're supposed to appreciate life. It's not just about getting from point A to point B. It's the journey, and they do that really well over there.
What is it about the Missionary Training Center that allows you to digest a new language in 6 to 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're in it, as opposed to taking a class online for 5 years and finally putting together a couple of sentences? How is it sped up at the MTC, and then when you're over there in Paris, they kind of drop you off and say, here's your companion, good luck? How long did it take you to pick it up?
It really is. I'll answer the first part of the question first. It's the gift of tongues. I really have a firm belief and testimony in that. But being exposed to it all day, every day for the 8 weeks, 10 weeks, however long you're in the MTC, it does build a nice base for you. And you get over there. But to answer your other question, I thought I was doing pretty well in the MTC until I got in that Air France airplane heading over, and I heard the announcements, and I didn't understand a word of that. I'd say it took about a month where I was understanding people, and about 4 months, so 6 months total on the mission, where I could say pretty much everything I wanted to say.
Yeah. Well, when I was on the plane going to Texas, that other country over there by France, and I sat down next to a Baptist preacher of all things, coming from Salt Lake to San Antonio, and he started talking to me. I didn't understand a word he said either. I was like, okay, that's Texan. We didn't have a class on that.
Nope.
But that's awesome. What's the biggest misconception that we Americans have about France? The French people.
This is a big one. There is this misconception that the French are rude or that the Italians are rude, and it's absolutely not the case if you're willing to meet them where they are. Now, if you're one of the fanny pack carrying, I'm going to go and I'm going to speak only English and I'm going to do only the things I would do if I'd stayed in Provo or if I'd gone to Los Angeles. Yeah, you're going to have a hard time adjusting. But if you go there and you make an effort to speak the language, you make an effort to appreciate their culture and appreciate who they are. They're a small but proud country. There's a reason that the rooster is their national symbol. It's a small but proud country. And if you meet them and you have an appreciation for them, they will love and appreciate you in return.
That's well said. We've spent a lot of time in Italy and in France and an exceptional amount of time in Spain. And we've just had nothing but respect from people because when we go, we just try to embrace the culture and just be part of it.
What do they get from the movies? Is that where it comes from, the image?
Yeah. I think it's a stereotype that was developed by Hollywood, really, to, it's easy to make the French be the snobby, highfalutin type when they're not all like that. I mean, there are people like that, but the overwhelming majority are very warm and welcoming.
So we know you're fluent in French, obviously. You're also the chair of the Italian department. Are you also fluent in Italian?
I'm not fluent in Italian. I do understand quite a bit. I can say what I want to with time, but in conversation, I'm kind of a step behind everybody else from my
But you can be the chair of that department because you run the department and all the administration, all the things that need to be done without having to be fluent. I wondered if you were like trilingual or.
So when the Italians come into your office, do you go, listen, I'm voting for the French on this one. The French get this, and the Italians are like, come on, man, give us a shake.
Never. In fact, it's already stacked against them. The French were much better at colonization than Italy was, and so we send a lot more missionaries to French-speaking places than we do Italian-speaking. So we've got 14 full-time faculty, 11 in French and 3 in Italian. So I feel like I take special care of my Italian colleagues, make sure they can do whatever they want to do.
When there's a World Cup showdown, though, what happens?
It gets intense. In fact, we had our version of the World Cup. There's a French versus Italian cook-off every year. Both places are noted for their cuisines as well. And the Italians won this year. And we've got a statue on the front desk of our office. It's this portly chef that has his hand up like this, and we tape a flag of the country that won
Oh,
in his
nice.
hand. So it's the Italian flag for another year.
So the Italians won it.
They
Even
did.
though they were outmanned or outwomaned, they won it.
Well, it's the students. It's the students
Oh,
that
it's the
cook.
students that cook.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the students
Okay.
that cook. So it's the Italian club versus French club, and the Italians won it this year.
Nice
yeah.
job. Nice job, Italians. All right, we're thrilled to have Bob Hudson. He's the chair of BYU's French and Italian departments on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. I believe he's ready for five
yeah.
questions.
Yep.
Presented by Strategy Square, owned and operated by a BYU alum. Let Chantal help your business grow at strategysquare.co. So we hit all our guests with 5 very important questions.
Okay.
And
Ready.
we did
And
not
they're
prep you in
top of your head
advance.
stuff.
Not
Top
at
of your
all.
head stuff, right?
This is all going to happen live here.
Yeah, at the end of the show, we're going to do 5 questions of just something for us that's, it's always something about cereal with us. But anyhow, your favorite sports movie?
Oh man, favorite sports movie. It's hard to go wrong with Field of Dreams.
Oh, If You Build It, They Will Come.
That's a classic.
James Earl Jones.
Who was your favorite actor in that? Because there were a bunch of side actors that were awesome.
They were, all great.
Good question. Ray Liotta. I love Ray Liotta.
Yeah, so Ray played Shoeless Joe, right?
He did play Shoeless
Yeah.
Joe. So
And-
side
and
actor Ray Liotta.
Darth Vader had a key role. I thought
he
he was
did.
really good.
Terrence
Yeah.
Mann, the
Yeah.
writer.
Yeah.
The journalist. And Kevin Costner
Oh,
was good.
he's
but,
great.
But those guys around, the supporting actors, I thought
The
really
wife
pulled it off.
of Kevin was great in that. I can't remember who the actress was that played
Amy
it.
Madigan.
Yeah, she was great. in
Yeah,
that.
she's very, very
Yeah,
good.
what a,
She's
what a
like,
great
like all
movie.
our wives are like, look at you like, are you crazy?
Yeah, are you out of your mind? But you know what? Whatever you need to do to find
And
yourself.
it's an old Burt Lancaster that's playing
Burt
Moonlight,
Lancaster
Moonlight
played the
Graham,
grandpa,
right?
Moonlight
Yeah,
Graham,
that's
yeah.
right.
The
There's some good
Dr.
ones.
Graham, right?
Okay, so Field of Dreams.
Favorite singer or band?
Jason Isbell.
What?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of Jason.
Jason Isbell in the 400 unit. I know it's a.
Is it a country band?
Yeah, it's a country band,
Is it
but not country the way you would think.
Southern
of country.
rock country kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
it's so
Some other country.
exactly. It's like alternative
A
country.
lot
what
of
they
people
call it.
down in Kentucky and Tennessee like that Southern rock kind of.
That's what he is.
So that's what he is. That makes
he was
sense
with the
to me.
Drive-By Truckers, which are very much a Southern rock band, but he's
Jason Isbell and the 400 unit.
That's his band, is the 400 unit. But Jason Isbell just has an acoustic album that just came out. He's very good.
I always like the ones that I haven't heard of because I always go listen to.
Hey, what'd
I
you
go to
think?
my Apple Music
What'd you
and
think of
listen.
Harleen singing that song?
He can sing, man.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
People are still chiming in. They're Wolfgang Van Halen can play as good as Eddie could. And like on and on and on. Vince Gill, and Vince is great. You mentioned him, but okay. So favorite is Jason Isbell. Favorite breakfast cereal. Always got to have something on cereal here.
Okay. This might not be the one that gets mentioned by most people, but I'm a big fan of Golden Grams.
There's no shame in
I
that.
actually like Golden Grams. It doesn't come up very often, but I could absolutely have a bowl of Golden Grams right now.
It's a commitment because you got to eat them quick.
That's right. They get soggy
They
pretty
get
quick.
soggy.
Yeah, because they do.
If
They
someone
soak it up.
distracts you before you know it, it's over.
Pour it out and start over. Yeah, or you lose the crunchiness.
But when they're crunchy, they're good. They're Golden
good.
Grams. All right, that's a good one.
His is like plain old Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
That cuts the roof of your mouth. I don't get it.
It does.
Without the crunch berries, I don't get it. So, and then mine is Cinnamon Life. So
That might be my number 2.
and it's not too far off of Golden Grams.
Golden Grams is a little more kid cereal,
Yeah,
where Cinnamon
yeah.
Life feels a
Yeah.
little more grown up.
It's still got
That's
just
why I
as
like
much
Fruit
sugar, so-
Loops. Yeah, same
Yeah.
thing.
So your favorite French cuisine?
Okay. I did a video on this one once. It's called Cookie Saint Jacques. They are St. James scallops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and what makes them? What makes them
Cookie
French? How do you take the
Saint-Jacques?
scallop and make it French?
So they take the scallop, they poach it in white wine and lots of butter, put it back into the scallop shell, and pipe Dauphine potatoes around it and bake it with cheese over the top.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
right.
Right there. As soon as you add potatoes and cheese to my scallop, I'm in.
Now, I know
Yeah.
you're.
To me, French is all. Every time I go out for French food in France, I feel like, man, there's just another tremendous sauce. Like I feel like the sauces are what make it in France.
That's what it's the sauce. It absolutely is. The saucier in the kitchen is one of the most important people there.
Is cuisine a French word?
It is.
Yeah.
Do your kids like the scallops?
Yeah. My
they'll eat
kids
them,
eat
huh?
well. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and number 5, your favorite BYU moment.
Okay. I was a little too young for 84 to be the big thing, although historically I do love that moment.
I love it too.
I'm going to be honest. It was my first year. After I got hurt at Murray State, I transferred to BYU. I was a student here. It must have been, I think, 2002. I'm going to guess it was 2002, but it was the BYU-Utah game where there was the Doman to Staley pitch about halfway down the film, and he turned the corner and went and won the game in the last seconds.
Bananas.
Yeah, so I was there for that game. That had to be the moment that was the one that stands out for me personally.
That's a great one. I remember that. I think I called that game.
I was watching that in the media room at the Lennox Lewis Hasim Rahman fight.
We all remember where we were.
At Mandalay Bay. And I went into the fight late because this was the last drive, right? They scored that touchdown, and then Utah came down and was it Irvin Lee or who got the pick? Was it Gennaro who got the pick?
Gennaro.
Gennaro got the pick to put the game away. But I remember Staley getting the ball, and then he just became the fastest man on the planet. But watching it on TV, just seeing the fans just go bananas.
I was one of those. 45,000.
So you were in the stands. Yeah. I was in the booth. He was at the Lennox Lewis fight?
And then Lewis knocked Rahman out like a bag of cookies.
He's got great heavyweight championship
That's a great
stories.
moment. So the Staley touchdown.
There you go. That was a great football team too that year.
It was.
Yeah,
so much so.
That's awesome. Good
it's
stuff.
great having you here. Thanks for coming.
No, thanks for having me.
You're our first chair of a language department, and hopefully not the last.
Yeah.
And we've learned some new words.
Yeah.
All that we can repeat, which usually,
And my thing was not a bad thing. It was a good thing.
It was a good thing.
It was a good thing.
How was my accent?
Love you,
was
cabbage, or something like that.
I did pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I give you an A.
Nice. There you go.
I will say ailier rapproché. That's how you say tight end.
That's
So
how you say it?
The wing that's closest. So tight end.
Ailier
means wing or end.
And is it rapproché?
Rapproché.
Rapproché.
So close up.
Ailier
The
rapproché.
close up end. The tight end.
Ailier rapproché.
What's your record? What are the Cougs going to do this fall?
How many wins?
I'm going to say a solid 10.
Nice. 10 would be great.
Solid. That's regular season.
And then they go win a bowl.
And
So
then,
10
and 2.
the playoffs.
If they're 10-2, they win the league and go to the playoff, maybe?
I hope so.
Yeah, that would be
Seems
fun.
like you would. If you're 10-2.
I think if you're 10-2, you win the league.
Yeah.
The great Bob Hudson, chair of the French and Italian departments and former offensive lineman at Murray State and a good neighbor of ours. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming.
Go Racers, go Cougars.
Go Racers and Cougs.